I wasn't supposed to follow him. I don't even know why I did, not really. Everyone else was outside, music playing, laughter bouncing off the patio, the smell of grilled burgers and sunscreen in the air. It was a perfect summer afternoon, the kind where time feels slower, like nothing important could possibly happen. But then he walked back into the house. Alone. And I followed. It wasn't premeditated. I didn't even have a reason. I think I told myself I was just going to grab more drinks. Or check on the laundry. Something harmless. Something forgettable. But the second I stepped inside, everything felt different. Quieter. Still. I heard the soft creak of the laundry room door. And I don't know what possessed me, but I pushed it open and slipped in right behind him. He turned when he heard the door close. I didn't mean to shut it, not fully. But it clicked behind me, and suddenly it was just the two of us. No laughter. No sunshine. No excuses. Just a... He looked surprised. But he didn't speak. Neither did I. The air was warm. Too warm. The dryer was running, its low hum vibrating through the floor. And for a second I remembered who he was. My friend's son. Barely 22. Maybe 23 now? I remembered him as a teenager, awkward, sweet, always offering to carry groceries or mow the lawn when his mom brought him over. But now, he was taller, broader, still a little shy, but there was something behind his eyes that wasn't there before. Something steady, unblinking. And in that silence, I felt my body do something I hadn't felt in years. It leaned. Not toward him, not exactly, but toward something. Some part of me I thought had gone quiet forever. And before either of us said a word, I knew. This wasn't just a mistake waiting to happen. It already had. And the way he looked at me next made it impossible to pretend otherwise. I should have stepped back. Said something, anything. Laughed it off, made a joke, opened the door and let the light back in. But I didn't. I just stood there watching him. And he watched me right back. Not with the kind of stare young men throw around to feel powerful, no. It wasn't cocky. It wasn't crude. It was curious. Like he'd been waiting to see what I would do. And now that I was there, really there, he didn't want to look away. I leaned against the dryer, pretending I was just catching my breath. But I wasn't out of breath. Not yet. The silence stretched. The hum of the machine felt louder now, like it was filling the room with a rhythm neither of us wanted to interrupt. He stepped closer. Not much, just enough. Enough for me to smell his skin. Warm. Clean. Like sun and sweat and something freshly washed. Did you need something? He asked. His voice was soft. A little lower than I remembered. But there was something behind it, the tiniest pull. Like he already knew the answer. I opened my mouth. And nothing came out. Because the truth was, I didn't need anything. Not laundry. Not another drink. Not fresh air. I needed to be looked at the way he was looking at me now. I needed to remember what it felt like to be seen. Not as someone's wife. Or someone's mother. Or someone's friend. But just me. He took another step. Closer. And I felt it, the drop in my chest. That quiet ache. That flicker of heat that starts in your spine and moves through you like a whisper you're too afraid to say out loud. I should have left. But all I could think was, does he feel it too? And when his hand brushed mine, just barely, I knew the answer. And suddenly the laundry room didn't feel small anymore. It felt like the only place in the world. It wasn't even a real touch. Just his fingers grazing mine. Accidental, maybe. But my skin lit up like it had been waiting for that moment all day. I didn't flinch. Didn't move. And neither did he. We both stayed still, like stepping out of that moment would break whatever spell we'd wandered into. I looked at our hands, so close. Not touching anymore. But still connected. That invisible thread tugging at the space between us. I can go, he said suddenly. Quiet. Almost unsure. His voice cracked the air like a match. But I shook my head. And I didn't know why I did that either. Only that the thought of him leaving made something drop in my stomach, sharp, immediate. You don't have to, I whispered. And I think that was the first time I admitted it. To him. To myself. That I didn't want him to go. That I was standing there for a reason I didn't have words for. And maybe never would. His eyes searched mine like he needed to be absolutely sure. And for a long, thick second, we just looked at each other. No words. Just heat. And breath. and that deep, slow hum of the dryer under my spine. Then he reached up so carefully like I was something delicate. His fingers brushed a strand of hair off my cheek, and I forgot how to breathe, because it wasn't just a touch. It was a decision. And every part of me, my hands, my lips, my throat, my chest, was screaming for him not to stop. I felt my back press further against the machine, its low vibration now matching something in me I didn't dare name. He was so close I could feel the warmth from his shirt, his breath, the steady rise and fall of someone trying not to rush what they've wanted too long. I looked down, not because I was ashamed, but because I was terrified of what I'd do next if I kept looking into his eyes. And when he whispered my name, God, I didn't even realize how much I needed to hear it like that, like it belonged to someone new. The sound of my name in his voice didn't feel wrong. Felt like being pulled out of sleep, like someone turning on a light I didn't know I needed. And when I looked up again, he was still watching me, not hungrily, not like some teenage fantasy finally unfolding. No, it was deeper than that, like he was trying to memorize me. My face, my hesitation, the way my fingers gripped the edge of the machine like they didn't trust themselves. He didn't move too fast, but he didn't hesitate either. His hand found my waist light at first, testing, but when I didn't pull away, he held me there. And suddenly the room was spinning just a little. Not physically, not exactly, but inside everything tilted. I wasn't used to being touched like that, like I was wanted, not out of habit, not out of obligation, but because someone couldn't help themselves. I reached up without thinking and brushed his collar, just to feel something solid, real. He exhaled, short, shaky, and that's when I realized he was nervous too. That made it worse, and better, because it meant this wasn't some reckless act he'd done before. This was new for him, for both of us. His thumb moved slowly over the curve of my hip, not demanding, not rushed, just aware. And then, we were closer. I don't remember who moved first, only that our foreheads touched, and I felt his breath on my lips. Warm, careful, waiting. We stayed there for a long second, not kissing, just almost. My heartbeat was so loud I was sure he could hear it, but he didn't pull away, and I didn't ask him to, because some part of me had already decided the line wasn't coming back. And when his mouth finally found mine, nothing felt forbidden anymore. The kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It didn't crash into me the way I thought it would. It unfolded slow, unsure, like he was letting it happen one breath at a time. And that's what undid me, because it wasn't lust. It was careful, like he knew he was kissing someone who hadn't been touched like that in a long time, and didn't want to scare her away. My fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt. Tight, too tight, like if I let go I'd fall. And maybe I would've, because everything inside me was melting, shifting, remembering. My body, it remembered things I'd locked away. How to respond to a touch. How to lean into warmth. How to feel wanted and let it happen. He kissed me again, deeper this time. Still soft. Still asking. But there was something building under the surface. That quiet desperation of someone holding back everything they wanted to say with their hands. The dryer buzzed. A sharp, sudden sound that reminded me there were people outside. Just steps away. Drinks in hand, laughing, completely unaware. And yet here we were, hidden in this tiny room, lit only by afternoon sun spilling through a dusty window, wrapped in silence and static and heat. He pulled back just enough to look at me, and when he did, I swear my knees almost gave out, because his eyes weren't asking for permission. They were asking if I regretted it. And I didn't. Not for a second. His hand moved slowly up my back, fingertips trailing along the fabric of my dress like he was memorizing every line. I closed my eyes, let myself breathe him in. I didn't know where this was going, what it would mean tomorrow, what I'd feel when the door opened again. But I knew one thing. I didn't want to stop. Not yet. The dress I'd chosen that morning felt different now. It had been casual, loose enough to breathe in, light enough for the heat. But pressed between his body and the dryer, it suddenly felt too thin, too revealing, too aware of every inch between us. The fabric clung to my skin where the heat had settled, wrapping around my thighs, catching at the small of my back where his hand rested. And when he leaned in again, just enough for our bodies to meet fully, God, that quiet ache inside me, it surged. There was no space left between us. Only breath. Only the soft thud of my heartbeat matching his, somewhere between my ribs and his chest. He whispered something I couldn't fully hear, but I felt it, right against my ear. Warm. Unsteady. Like he was giving in to something he'd been trying to hold back. And when his hand slid lower, finding the curve of me, just where the machine's hum trembled against my spine, I felt myself let go. Not entirely. Not loudly. But enough. Enough to let my head fall back against the wall. Enough to feel my breath catch in my throat. Enough to lose the edges of who I was before this moment. His lips followed the line of my jaw. Not rushed, no. Almost reverent. Like he was letting himself believe I was real. That this was real. And I couldn't stop the sound that left my mouth. Half sigh, half confession. Because in that second I wasn't thinking about guilt. Or age. Or what people would say if they knew. I was thinking about how long it had been since I felt wanted like this. Since I felt like me again. Not a role. Not a title. Just a woman in a warm room. With someone who saw her. Someone who reached for her. And as the heat between us thickened, as the dryer buzzed again like it was begging us to leave, I didn't move. Because I wasn't ready for the door to open. Not when everything I never let myself want was finally right in front of me. I don't know if it was the heat, or the way his hands had started to move with more purpose. But time stopped making sense. The laundry room, the door, the world outside. It all disappeared. It was just the sound of my breath. And his hands guiding me gently. Lifting me like I was something he'd dreamed about too long to wait for. I should have stopped him. I should have said, "We can't do this." But I didn't. Because the second my body left the floor, and his arms anchored me like I weighed nothing, the part of me that always obeyed rules just vanished. I wrapped my arms around his shoulders. Felt the muscles tighten beneath my fingers. Felt the heat of his skin through his shirt. He looked at me, God really looked at me. Like I was something holy. Like I was breaking him just by saying yes without words. And the way he held me. It wasn't selfish. It wasn't fast. It was slow. Almost reverent. Like he wanted to give me every second of it. Like he knew I hadn't been touched like that in years. Not with intention. Not with worship. I pressed my forehead to his, eyes closed, heart racing. And I whispered something I hadn't planned to say. I forgot what this felt like. He didn't answer right away. But his grip tightened just slightly. Like he understood more than I'd said. Like he'd been waiting to be the one to remind me. The air felt heavier now. Like the moment had pulled us into some private orbit. Where rules didn't matter and time didn't exist. And nothing outside that door could touch us. But somewhere in the distance, I heard a laugh. Faint. Muffled. A reminder. We weren't alone in the world. We just felt like we were. And in that sudden silence that followed, as he pulled back just enough to search my face, I knew what was coming next would change everything. When it was over, he didn't let go right away. He stayed there, arms still around me, forehead resting against mine, like we were both afraid to move too fast and break whatever had just happened. The dryer had stopped. There was no sound now, just the hush of our breathing, and the hum still alive in my chest. I slid down from his arms slowly, my feet touching the cool tile like it was unfamiliar ground. I didn't know what to say. There wasn't a word big enough for it. For the feeling that had swallowed me whole and quietly handed me back to myself. But when I looked up at him, he was smiling. Not cocky. Not triumphant. Just this soft, almost shy smile that said everything without needing to speak. I reached for my hair, tried to smooth it down. Suddenly aware of the world again. The door, the house, the people outside. The guilt didn't come the way I expected. It wasn't sharp. It was quieter. Like a question I'd have to answer later. But not now. Because in that moment, I didn't feel shame. I felt seen. And I don't know how long I stood there, watching the way the sunlight cut across the floor, splitting the room into before and after. But I remember the weight of the doorknob in my hand, and the cool air that rushed in the second I opened it. Laughter. Voices. Ice in glasses. Everything normal. Everything the same. Except me. I stepped back outside, blinked into the sun, and smiled when someone asked if I could grab another plate of burgers. Sure, I said. Like nothing had happened. Like I was still her. Still the woman they knew. But inside, I was someone else. And I knew I'd never forget what it felt like to be chosen when I wasn't supposed to be.